Hi, 7th graders. We're on lesson 7-3. It starts on page 363 in your notebook, or in your textbook, and we are finding the area of composite figures. So a composite figure, which is part of your vocabulary words on your sheet, is made up of two or more shapes. So here's some examples of some composite figures. Here is one that has a parallelogram and a rectangle. Even though it's one shape all together, one figure, you can break it up into a parallelogram and a rectangle. This one you can break up into a square and half of a circle, or we would call it a semicircle. And as you can see, this line right here is the side of the square, but it's also the diameter of the circle. So that's what we would use then to help find the area or circumference of the circle. And then here we have a triangle, and we also have a trapezoid. And it's kind of flipped a little bit, but this line right here and this line are the bases because those are the parallel lines. And then we have our two other sides. So this one is broken up into a triangle and a trapezoid. So when we want to find the area of one of these figures, the whole entire thing, what we need to do is figure out how can we break it up into shapes that we already know how to find the areas of those shapes. So for example, we can try to break it up into parallelograms, triangles, trapezoids, and circles because we know how to find the area of all of those shapes. So here is an example. So if you look at this one, right away we can see we have a triangle and we also have a half circle or our semicircle. So the first thing that we can do is tell ourselves we want to break this up into a half circle and to a triangle. Then what we would do is we find the area of each figure, and then we're going to end up adding them together. So the area of a semicircle, so what you're doing, we know that the area of a full circle is pi r squared. Since it's just half of it, we would find the area of a full circle if it was 1, and then we would multiply it by 1/2 or divide it by 2. So we're given the diameter, which is 6, because we know that the whole length of this is 6. So therefore that's our diameter because it crosses our whole circle. But we need to use the radius in the area for our circle, so we take it and divide it by 2. And then we're multiplying by half because it's only half of a circle. So 1/2 times pi times 3, because 3 is half of 6, squared. And we get approximately 14.1. Then we find the area of the triangle, which is 1/2 base times height. We know our base is 11. We know that our height is 6. So 1/2 times 6 times 11, or we can flip it, I guess, and have this be our base and that be our height, is 33. Now we have to take our area of our circle and area of our triangle and we add it together and we get 47.1 square meters. So you find the area of each figure that you break apart, and then you have to remember to add them together when you are done. Okay, so let's do this one together. So we have this shape, and right away, so I'm going to try to break this up as best as I can here. I can see that I have a rectangle and a square, even though this is not that straight of a line. Okay, so now I need to figure out my base and my height of my rectangle and then figure out the sides of my square. So I know that this whole thing down here, this whole line, is 18 centimeters. This is 12. So 12 plus whatever this is needs to equal 18. So we know then that it's going to be 6. Plus we knew that this was a square. Well, we assumed it was a square. We weren't for sure, so we did need to check. But now this tells me, yep, that's a square. Same goes for over here. Now we know that this length right here is 12, and then this length right here is 6, so 12 plus 6. So we know that this side then has to be 18. So now what we do is we're going to take area of our rectangle. So we have 12 times 18. And we get 12 times 18 equals 216. And then we take the area of our square, so 6 times 6, and we get 36. And we should label this correctly, even though I'm trying to go fast for you guys. And then we have 36 centimeters squared. So then we go 216 plus 36, and we get, so let's add that, or let's write that out, plus 36, and we get 252 centimeters squared. Okay, this is our rectangle. This is our square. Okay, next one. I see that I have a rectangle and I also have a semicircle. Okay, so the area of my rectangle, so let's label this so it's a little less confusing. So the area of our rectangle is going to be 15 times 7. And we get 15 times 7 equals 105 meters squared. Okay, now we have our half circle. Okay, remember area equals pi r squared, but since it's a half circle, we're going to multiply it by half. So we go half times pi times r, which is our radius. So here, this is our diameter, and because it's the same length as this down here, our diameter is 15. We take 15, divide it by 2 to get our radius, so that's 7.5, and then we need to square it. So we can go, so I usually go 7.5 squared is 56.25, and then I'm going to times it by 0.5, which is half, so I get 28.125, and now I'm going to multiply it by pi, and I'm going to use the pi symbol on my calculator. You can use 3.14, but if you have pi on your calculator, use that. We may get a little bit different answers. But I get 88.36. So I'm going to round it. Well, let's round it to our nearest tenth. So 88.4. And then we'll label it as meters squared. Okay, and then our last step, remember, is to add them together. So 105 plus 88.4, we get 105 plus 88.4 is 193.4, that should be a 3, 193.4 meters squared. Okay, last one is a little bit trickier. If you want to try pausing me and see if you can do it on your own and then come back and check, that would be awesome. Otherwise, feel free to follow along and take notes as I solve it. So I can see that I almost have a square, or a rectangle, I guess, with a little piece of, excuse me, a triangle cut out. Okay, so I'm going to create a square now. So now I know that because this whole bottom is 25 and it has to be the same as this top, since this is 20, I know that this piece right here of my triangle is going to be 5. And same goes for here, or for these two sides, because this side is 20, then this side needs to be 20, because this right here is 13, then this needs to be 7. Because 7 plus 13 equals 20, 20 plus 5 equals 25, so then these two are the same, and these are the same. So now what we can do is we can find the area of this whole rectangle. So I'm just going to label it as R. So the area of the rectangle then is base times height, or one side times other side. So we have 25 times 20. 25 times 20 equals 500. Inches squared. Now we want to find the area of the triangle because we want to subtract that from our total area of our rectangle. So the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. So we have 1/2 times, and we know that this is a right triangle because it's the same as the other three angles. So 1/2 times 7 times 5. So we get 0.5 times 7 times 5 equals 17.5 inches squared. Now instead of adding them together, we need to subtract them, because remember that little piece of the triangle that we just figured out is subtracted, or is taken out of that rectangle. So 500 minus 17.5 equals 500 minus 17.5. We have 482.5 inches squared. Okay, so the thing about composite figures is to look at it and figure out how you can break it up into figures that you already know how to find the area of. So it can be a little confusing, and it's a little bit confusing trying to find the length of the sides of the new figures that you make. So you have to be aware of the information that you're given and what you can work with to make your new figures. You can always look in the book in chapter 7.3. There's a couple more examples actually, so you could look in there and revisit this. You can rewatch the video and make sure you go on to Naiku and take the 7.3 quiz. Have a super evening.